Beers, the law firm of Beers and Gordon of Oviedo. I'm here to talk for a few minutes today about uninsured motorist coverage. You're definitely permitted by law to file a personal injury lawsuit against a party that does not have liability insurance.
The problem is that person collectible? And that's going to be one of the issues when you look at suing someone that's uninsured. Is, yeah, I can sue them, the attorney can sue on my behalf, but if we go all the way to trial and I get a judgment against that person, am I ever going to be able to collect on that judgment?
In general, the answer is that suing an uninsured driver in Florida is not a good financial decision. The reason that we offer that opinion is that many drivers in Florida are, in fact, underinsured themselves. If they have no insurance at all, you can sue them, but even obtaining a judgment against them is not going to accomplish your goal. So we do not recommend pursuing someone who does not have insurance. Now, one of the things that we do to benefit our clients is that we use an assets investigator who does a check to determine whether or not someone who does not have insurance is taking the road to their financial success by not paying insurance, even though they have the assets that would allow them to carry insurance. And if we find someone who's in that category, and they are rare, we can take affirmative action and file the lawsuit and pursue them to attempt to recover directly from them from their own personal assets.
So if we find out someone's uninsured, at Beers and Gordon, we don't just say, let's drop the case, let's send this person on their way, because we're not going to make any money off of it. That's not what we do. We end up looking into their background. We sometimes hire an expert to look into the assets of the other person, especially the more serious the case, the more problems the person, our client, may have, the more we're going to jump into that issue. But we have that outside expert look at, do they have a second home? Do they have any other property? Do they have tangible, real assets that we could go after if we were to ever get a judgment against someone in Florida? Because if we get a judgment, the problem is, if you go get a judgment against someone, so if they don't have assets and you go get a judgment against them, you get a judgment. You win the case, you win the trial, you get a judgment. Let's say the judgment's for $100,000. Well, now you got the next step. Can we collect on the judgment? That's a whole nother process. But a lot of things you can't get to. We can't get to people's homes if it's homesteaded. We can't get to their pensions and their retirement accounts. So in Florida, a lot of people are very well protected from being sued from that judgment. A lot of people jokingly said years ago, why did OJ move to Florida after he got the big civil judgment against him in California? And the reason was he was well protected in Florida. His home was protected under homestead, and actually his pension from Hertz and from the NFL was protected. So that's why he's able to live in Florida and be able to basically have fun all day in golf, because he was judgment proof. And that's the problem with going against an uninsured motorist, is a lot of times they are judgment proof.
The options available to you if the other party does not have the required property damage liability insurance is, of course, that you can file a lawsuit against them and try to go to judgment against them and obtain a financial judgment. In general, the better approach is to have your own insurance company pay for the damages to your vehicle, pay your collision damage deductible yourself, and count on your insurance company to pursue the at-fault driver. The other possibility, and this is not usually done, but it could be done by you and your capacity of trying to get the most out of what you can from a bad situation, is a direct contact with the at-fault driver and a settlement with them where they pay you cash for the property damages if they're not too substantial.
You can sue an uninsured motorist for your deductible. I would recommend that you first, before you do something like that, or your attorney does something like that on your behalf, that you send a letter, you try to resolve it amicably. Why? Your deductible is probably $500 or $1,000. A lot of times people will pony up that kind of money because they know they were at fault for the accident and they want the matter to go away. If the person absolutely refuses to pay your deductible for some odd reason, you can sue them. You can sue them. It would be a small claims court action. Everything in Florida now, $8,000 and under is a small claims action. I tell clients in that situation, if they're not a client, they're just calling the office. I say, small claims is really set up for individuals to sue within the court system and not have to have an attorney. And it would be recommended to do it by yourself in small claims court because you don't want to pay an attorney an hourly fee of $150, $200, $300 an hour for a $500 or $1,000 deductible because you're not getting that money back. So you can sue, but the recommendation is to always resolve those cases.
In this day and age in Florida, where 20 to 40% of the market is composed of individuals who are not in compliance with Florida's financial responsibility laws, you may encounter, in fact, someone who is at fault in causing property damage to your vehicle or personal injuries to you, and you're going to need to have uninsured motorist coverage to protect yourself and your family. Uninsured motorist coverage is designed to pay for the damages that are caused by the at-fault party, almost as if the at-fault party had insurance in the amount of your own uninsured motorist coverage. So for example, by law, you're permitted to have, if you ask your agent for it, uninsured motorist coverage in identical amounts to the amount that you purchased to protect yourself from liability. If you purchase $100,000 per person, $300,000 per accident, for example, for liability coverage, you are entitled to pay for $100,000, $300,000, we call it, for uninsured motorist coverage. And what that would do is put you in a position where you're not at fault for the accident, but instead of being faced with a financial disaster as a result of the negligence of the other party, by purchasing the uninsured motorist coverage and protecting yourself, you would have a claim against your own insurance company, and that would protect your family.
I've been saying for years, and every time I talk to someone, every time I see a client come in and I find out they don't have uninsured motorist coverage, I say, this is friendly advice, not legal advice, but you need to protect yourself. Florida, there's no requirement you carry bodily injury coverage. We're one of 2 states that doesn't require bodily injury coverage for some reason. So the problem is, another 20% they say, so it's 40% either have $10,000 of coverage or no coverage. That's a big problem because $10,000 coverage does not go very far for lost wages, medical expenses, future medical expenses, and potentially cover pain and suffering damages. So you always want to get that extra layer of protection, that uninsured motorist coverage that will step in when there's not enough coverage or there's no coverage for the other driver. Also, the other reason you want uninsured motorist coverage is there potentially you can be involved in a hit and run. Someone hits you. This happened just recently. They hit our client. They pulled us up. They pulled aside. They got out of the vehicle, started to, and then they took off. Client's dark. It's at nighttime. They can't see the license plate. So what do? Well, in this case, they can actually go to the uninsured motorist coverage. It covers you for hit and run, what are called phantom motor vehicle accidents. So that's the other reason to have uninsured motorists. Sometimes you can be in a situation where we don't know if there's any insurance, but you can't ever find out because of the situation. So I've been preaching it for years. When you talk to your insurance agent, they'll preach it. Get uninsured motorist coverage. Every year you renew, it'll ask you if you haven't had it, it'll ask you whether you want to reject it. If you can afford it, at least get some.